Good morning and welcome to World News here on TVP World. U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin have agreed on a meeting to discuss an end to the war in Ukraine. The talks will take place on Friday, August 15 in Alaska, the U.S. state closest to Russia.
The meeting was first announced by Trump on social media on Friday and later confirmed by a Kremlin spokesperson. Prior to the announcement, Trump said that both sides were close to a ceasefire deal, which would involve swapping of the territories to, quote, the betterment of both. According to a CBS News report citing sources familiar with the discussions, the White House is trying to sway European leaders to accept an agreement that would give Russia the entire Donbas region in eastern Ukraine and allow it to keep Crimea. Earlier on Friday, the Wall Street Journal reported that Putin had proposed a similar agreement to Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff during a recent meeting in Moscow. It remains unclear whether Ukraine and its allies are willing to accept such an agreement.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has reportedly offered to halt the war in exchange for Ukraine's eastern regions. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, Putin proposed the arrangement during Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff's visit to Moscow earlier this week. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, Putin told Witkoff that Russia would agree to a ceasefire if Kyiv withdrew its forces from the Donetsk region, giving Moscow full control of Donetsk and Luhansk regions, as well as Crimea. Putin's proposal is reportedly divided into two phases. The first would entail the Ukrainian forces withdrawing from Donetsk and thus effectively freezing the front line. In the second phase, Trump and Putin would agree on a final peace plan, which would then be negotiated with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. According to a Friday report by Bloomberg, Russian and U.S. officials are already working on a territorial agreement that would freeze the conflict and lay the groundwork for a ceasefire deal. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy commented on the Trump-Putin meeting, dismissing any peace proposals that exclude Kyiv. He reiterated that Ukraine will not compromise on its territorial integrity.
The Ukrainian people deserve peace. However, all partners must understand what constitutes a worthy peace. This war must end, and Russia must stop it. Russia started the war and has been dragging it out by ignoring all deadlines. And this is the problem, not anything else. The answer to the Ukrainian territorial issue is already in Ukraine's constitution. No one will and cannot back down from this. Ukrainians will not give their land to the occupier. Ukraine is ready for real solutions that can bring peace. Any solutions that are against us, any solutions that do not involve Ukraine, are solutions against peace. This will not bring anything. These are dead solutions. They will never work. And we all need a real, living peace that people will respect. We are ready, together with President Trump, together with all our partners, to work for a real and, most importantly, lasting peace. A peace that will not collapse because of Moscow's wishes.
Russia's sudden openness to peace negotiations with Washington after months of stalling has raised eyebrows around the world, including those of Finnish Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen. In an interview with TVP World, Valtonen said she doesn't trust Russia to keep its word when it comes to agreements that require concessions.
Unfortunately, I'm not very optimistic because I haven't seen any concessions on the part of Russia. And even if there were, then it will be very difficult to trust any paper that Vladimir Putin has signed. We have seen that he has been happy and keen to violate against any rule or any agreement that he has been drafting himself. So I wouldn't be in that regard too optimistic. But at the same time, of course, we have to applaud any progress, if there was any. But also we have to be extremely cautious because I'm pretty sure that Russia wants to engage in peace talks now and perhaps prolong them for the time being, especially if it does hinder the United States from putting stronger sanctions on Russia.
Senior officials from Ukraine, the United States, and Europe are reportedly set to meet in the UK to seek a common position ahead of the planned summit between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin next week.
In a conference call on Friday, an in-person meeting was proposed between senior officials from Ukraine, Europe, and the US. The logistics of the UK meeting, including who will participate, are still being discussed. Trump and Zelenskyy are reportedly working to sign something that won't violate Ukrainian law. The US leader has said that a potential peace deal will involve some swapping of the territories as the US intensifies its effort to broker a peace agreement. For Zelenskyy to cede Ukrainian territory, a referendum would need to be held, an unnamed Ukrainian official has noted.
During their Wednesday meeting in Moscow, Vladimir Putin is said to have given Steve Witkoff the Order of Lenin to pass on to a high-ranking CIA official whose son died fighting in Ukraine on Russia's side. Now, the Russian leader allegedly wanted the order to be given to Juliana Galina, the CIA's deputy director of digital innovation. Galina's son, Michael Gloss, was killed in Ukraine in 2024 while fighting for Russia. He was 21 years old. It's unclear, however, what Witkoff did with the order. News of Michael Gloss's death emerged in April. According to the independent Russian news media outlet, the Moscow Times, he arrived in Russia in August 2023, signed a contract with the Russian Defense Ministry the following month. He was sent to the front in December and died less than 4 months later. Ukraine is set to receive over 3.2 billion euros in EU support following the approval of the fourth regular payment from the European Union's Ukraine facility. The funding is aimed at boosting Ukraine's macroeconomic stability and supporting the country's public administration. Payments under the Ukraine facility are closely linked with the EU's Ukraine plan. The scheme outlines Kyiv's strategy for recovery, reconstruction, and modernization. It also maps out the implementation of reforms aligned with the country's EU accession goals. The Ukraine facility, launched in March 2024, is set to provide Kyiv with 50 billion euros paid out in grants and loans to support the country's recovery after Russia's invasion. Russia has taken another step in terrorizing Ukrainian society. Not only did Russians capture children from occupied Ukrainian territories, but these children are now featured in a twisted online adoption catalog created by the oppressors. Ukrainian authorities estimate that some 20,000 children have been kidnapped and taken into custody by Russia and are now being openly trafficked by the Kremlin. Anastasia Yanchenko has more in her latest report.
Alexei, 10, friendly, polite, obedient, and Alexandr, 10, loves sports, hardworking. These are sample profiles of Ukrainian children posted on a Russian server in occupied Luhansk. The database includes about 300 mostly Ukrainian children, categorized by traits like disciplined or reliable, with the parental status field left blank.
You can find information about their obedience, that they are ready to do what they want. It's what the family want.
Ukrainian children have been appearing in Russian adoption databases since 2014. But after the 2022 invasion, this practice became widespread and more systematic.
Thousands of these kids whose parents were killed, now orphans, and have been placed in Russian orphanages and Russian families, and all of them have Russian citizenship, as well as the other kids, even in the families. It's a Russian strategy.
According to the testimonies of returned children, Moscow sends the abductees to re-education camps where they are forced to learn Russian culture and history in an effort to erase their Ukrainian roots. These actions have a harmful impact on the children's mental health.
It takes a time and efforts for Ukrainian side to overcome the consequences of this propaganda, of this indoctrination.
Experts say Russia now quickly issues Russian passports to the kidnapped children and changes their names, making it very difficult to identify and bring them back. Older children may also be mobilized and pressed into the Russian military.
Russia recruits and mobilizes the new generation of Ukrainians and use it as a, let's say, meat in the front, in the military actions. It's a kind of, let's say, double crime.
Ukrainian officials say that at least 20,000 children have been deported during the 10 years of war. Only about 1,350 have been returned, mostly with the help of third parties like the Vatican or the United Arab Emirates. But the real number of abducted children is likely to be much higher. Earlier this month, Ukraine's military intelligence said it had hacked the servers of the Russian-controlled government in Crimea and found thousands of new records with names, addresses, and new Russian guardians assigned to the abductees.
Thousands of files with valuable evidence of one of Russia's biggest war crimes, the abduction of Ukrainian children, have been handed over to law enforcement. This information will help return the children and punish those responsible.
During the second round of the peace talks between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul, Kyiv handed Moscow a list of 339 forcibly deported children demanding their return. In March of 2023, the International Criminal Court in The Hague issued an arrest warrant after Vladimir Putin and Russia's Presidential Commissioner for Children's Rights, Maria Lvova-Belova, over the illegal deportation of Ukrainian children to Russia. This report for TVP World, Anastasia Yanchenko.
In our breaking news, we have a report coming out of the Polish press agency that U.S. President Donald Trump has invited Poland's new president, Karol Nawrocki, to Washington, to the White House. The meeting will take place on the 3rd of September, 2025, as written on the X social media portal by Chief Cabinet of the President, Paweł Szefernaker. This is a developing story. According to the Polish National Prosecutor's Office, 5 Belarusians have been charged in connection with acts of sabotage and espionage in Poland, as well as working for a foreign intelligence service. Now, the Department for Combating Organized Crime and Corruption is currently investigating 3 cases. One of the indicted Belarusian nationals, who in accordance with Polish privacy regulations was referred to as Artyom K., was detained and charged by the Internal Security Agency with espionage on December 19, 2024. He pleaded not guilty. But now, according to evidence obtained by the agency, Artyom K. declared his readiness to act on behalf of a foreign intelligence agency against the Republic of Poland. At the prosecutor's request, the court ordered the suspect to be held in custody. He faces a prison sentence of 6 months to 8 years. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he had a phone conversation with his, quote, friend, Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Indian Prime Minister added that Putin shared with him the latest developments on talks about Ukraine.
Had a very good and detailed conversation with my friend, President Putin. I thanked him for sharing the latest developments on Ukraine. We also reviewed the progress in our bilateral agenda and reaffirmed our commitment to further deepen the India-Russia special and privileged strategic partnership. I look forward to hosting President Putin in India later this year.
For this edition of World News here on TVP World, I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching and stay with us for more news, features, and exclusive commentary.